Alex Hawkins, thanks for being here with me on For the Sake of the Argument. I'm excited to talk to you.
Yeah, I appreciate you having me, Lori. This is going to be a lot of fun.
We'll make sure it is. You are a candidate for House District 55. I want you to tell us what communities that covers, and I want you to tell us a little bit about yourself, what you've done in the past.
Sure. So House District 55 incorporates Rochester Hills, Michigan, the city of Rochester, and then Precinct 1 of Oakland Township. So it is one of the lesser gerrymandered districts in the sense that it follows the Rochester Hills city lines until you get to about Oakland Township, where it jumps up for the first precinct and then comes back down.
But those are pretty comparable communities in a way. It's not
Yes.
like, Grosse Pointe and Ecorse.
Agreed.
Okay.
Yeah, they are demographically similar, which is good on the less gerrymandering side.
Okay, well, congrats to you. So you don't have any opponents running against you in the primary.
Right.
The deadline is passed.
Yes.
But this isn't your first rodeo. Prior to this race, and we're going to get more into who you're running against in the general on the Republican side. Prior to this race, what have you done?
So prior to this race, I enlisted in the military right after high school. So I went to school to become a bomb tech. So my job in the Army for the last 11 years has been to render safe explosive devices. So the Army Bomb Squad is what I've done. I've had a chance to travel to the Middle East, Africa twice. I've worked at the White House as the on-call bomb squad, and now I serve in the Michigan Army National Guard. I most recently worked for then Congresswoman Alyssa Slotkin on her official staff in Lansing doing military veterans affairs work, some constituent work, and then casework and that kind of stuff. Before that, I worked in the private sector for a small boutique investment banking firm in Southfield that does mergers and acquisitions. I was not an investment banker. I worked operations. Before that, I worked for Senator Peters as an intern for about 6 months, and then was active duty before that. So that's kind of my background.
All right, and you have run previously for the 10th Congressional District. You were in that race for a while, and prior to that, what race were you in?
I was in this same race. I ran in a primary in 2024 for House District 55. I lost my primary by a few hundred votes. I ran a short race with no money, but we just knocked on a ton of doors. We got very close, and then after I lost my primary, I actually got put on military orders to travel with the presidential candidates for 60 days leading up to the election. So every other day I was flying to a city doing explosive sweeps for either Trump or then VP Harris.
Wow, that's incredible that you have such a high-pressure job experience, with making sure that bombs are rendered safe or inactive, whatever they call it, and politics. I mean, those are two of the most stressful jobs I can think of right now. You probably understand that the biggest issues for voters, the biggest issue in 26 is the cost of living. And that's not just some generic term. We can't afford groceries, and I do mean we.
Mm-hmm.
We can't afford to heat our houses, to cool our houses, to send our kids to school, to pay for insurance, for car, health. This cost of living is killing us, no matter how hard we work, no matter how much we're making, and most of us aren't making enough. So what policies do you support to bring down costs for everyday Michiganders?
I think that we need to. There's a few different things because housing, groceries, insurance. I think one of the biggest issues is healthcare. It's the number one, or was most recently, the largest medical debt, or medical debt was the largest portion of debt that people held. And so if we can, there's some state reps who have introduced what's called MyCare. I think it's somebody's talked about on your show. A thing like MyCare, if people have the ability to not spend thousands of dollars a month on their health care, that's real money in their pocket. If they can use a public option like MyCare, that is a tangible thing that will help people. If we actually go after monopolies for price gouging and don't allow them to consolidate, and it's difficult because it's out of the state, a lot of these major corporations, but the ones that are here in the businesses, the Krogers, the large food chains, who have dynamic pricing or want to introduce that.
What is dynamic about it? Dynamic pricing?
Yeah, they're introducing a lot of digital. you've seen it, I'm sure at Walmart they have the digital.
The Scantron thing?
It's the digital price for every item.
Okay.
And so they, depending on the day and the use, they will raise it or lower it. And they also are using technology like facial recognition to know who is in the store, where they are in the store, what they're buying, and how much to charge them.
So wait, if I go up to the Honey Nut Cheerios, I see a price. I take it, I put it in my cart, I go cash it out, and you do the same. Aren't we both paying the same price?
We should. But they are pushing for a model with dynamic pricing where maybe I come half an hour after you during rush hour and it is 40 cents more for the exact same product.
That's crazy. Like they can up the gas price every second or lower. Yeah, okay, this is crazy.
Yes. And so health insurance, car insurance is something that here in Michigan we all struggle with. And I think there's a lot that we can do at the state level to. We're a no-fault state, which makes it very expensive. And you, no matter what, have to cover the cost of your vehicle. I was hit by somebody, and I tried to go after their insurance company for the damages, and they were like, oh, no, it's a no-fault state. Your insurance company has to pay it, even though you're not at fault. And I know my rates are going to go up. Every time anything happens, my rates are going to go up. So there's a few tangible things like that. Housing affordability is something that nobody can. I'm 31 years old. Most of my friends can't buy a house and don't ever think they're going to be able to. And that is a real problem that we need to address. It's a nationwide problem, but at the state level, we're going to have to find ways to change zoning. I know that local control is really important for a lot of municipalities. And somebody who lives in Rochester is different from somebody who lives in Lansing. And so we need to make sure that we're allowing cities to maintain some of their control, or a majority of it, but that the state is pushing to make sure that we are pushing developers to build houses that people can actually buy, or condos or multi-unit.
Even if they have to be smaller and not have any bells and whistles.
Right.
I know I'm a realtor and I work with people every day that can't get over that hurdle. So those are all great ideas, all right? And I understand what you're saying, and I've heard it from almost everyone that sat in the seat you're sitting in now. But what can you do when you get to Lansing, if you're elected, to make sure that you can work not only with the Democrats, which are kind of disparate, what they agree on these days, but across the aisle so that we can get something done? We're tired of the talk. We need relief, and we need it now.
Yeah, I say I really don't give a shit whose idea it is. Excuse my language. If it's a good idea, it's a good idea. Like I said, I've been in the military for 11 years. Most of my friends in the military are conservative. I'm a reserve sheriff's deputy for Oakland County. Most of my friends in law enforcement are conservative. We talk, we sit down. I have no issue working with those people, knowing that they have my back, knowing that I have theirs. There's a state rep in a city that I used to live in who's a Republican, and I ran into him after the state of the state at an event. And we caught up, and he was like, I want you here in Lansing. He was like, there's so much stuff we can work on. He said, I want you in a safe blue seat because I don't think you can beat the Republican incumbent. And he said, I don't think it's a good seat for you. And I said, well, you have to say that. And he said, yeah. But he said, I want you here. There's so many things we could work on. And some of the other Democratic state reps were looking at me, and they're like, how do you know this super conservative state rep who's a Republican and who's saying that about you? And he was like telling other people, like, yeah, Alex is a great guy, and I want to work with him. Not in that seat, but if he comes here, I have no problem working with other people. I don't care if a Republican has a better idea. Like, then we're going to do that.
Right. We need more people coming together on things that serve the public. So let's talk about DTE and consumers energy. Do you take money from them?
Absolutely not.
No dark money, no money we can't see because the laws are written so that there's a lot of shit we can't find out about as voters.
No, and so there could be dark money spent on me, but I have no way of knowing that.
So you're not actively pursuing
absolutely not. But there's no way to. Elon Musk could say, I like Alex, and drop $1 million because our system is so broken. And so that's getting money out of politics is something that I think is wildly important that we need to pursue.
Yeah, everybody's got to start signing those petitions, and take some to get your friends to sign. We're on a deadline for money out of politics mop. All right, so these utilities are causing a lot of hurt to all of us here in Michigan, the constant rate hikes and things like that. What can be done about that? Where can we stop it? Who stops it? Is it just the Attorney General, Dana Nessel? Is it the House? Is it the Senate? Who can stop it?
the House. The House and the Senate who approved the rate hikes for DTE, they can stop it. DTE made $1.5 billion around profit last year, and they just got another rate hike approved.
Any Democrats? I'm sure some Democrats are approving rate hikes.
Oh, there's a lot of Democrats that take DTE money. DTE gives money, and consumers gives money to Democrats and Republicans.
Yeah, well, that's pretty shitty. I don't like that. You shouldn't like that either, people.
No.
No, not at all. Let's find out who those Democrats are that are taking money from the utilities and getting these rate hikes increased. All right, aside from the utilities, are Democrats in Lansing doing enough to lower costs across the state? Are they in quicksand? They're just going through the motions, and we're not going to have any relief around the corner.
I'm hopeful that we will have the relief if we get the right people in there in November. I know that they haven't had the ability to do a lot because the Republicans have had the majority for a year and change now. But even towards the end of lame duck, when we had all the power, there was 230 bills that we couldn't get passed. So I think that there was a leadership issue on the State House side, and I think that depending on who gets elected and what happens in November, I think that there's a really strong chance that people like me who are absolutely done with watching nonsense unfold, who have leadership training, who have been put in situations where they are required to lead, and they're not just somebody trying to figure it out in the quicksand. I think we're going to have a really strong coalition coming in November to work together as Democrats and pass tangible legislation that helps people.
Because we will be watching, and the failure of leadership, we expected on the Republican side, but it was on our side.
Yeah,
and we're not
aggressively.
going to settle for it anymore. So speaking of your race, you are alone in the primary. I'm going to be psychic here and say you're going to prevail because no one's running against you. Yay. When you are in the general, you're going against Mark Tisdale. Tell me about Mark Tisdale.
So Mark Tisdale is the current state rep. He was elected into the 55th in 2020. We have tried to take that seat back aggressively. Since then, I think they spent about $1.8 million on the Dem side trying to take that seat last cycle, and so on and so forth before that. Mark was on the Older Person Commission, which is a senior community center that we have in Rochester. He was on that for a while. He was a Rochester Hills city councilman for a while. He has been in the community for 30, 40 years. So he's a very well-known individual, and he's a very nice guy. Every time I talk to him, he's very polite. But when you actually look at how he votes party line with the Republicans every time. In my district, which is one by Alyssa Slotkin and one by Donald Trump, is a very purple district, and people don't look. Mark Tisdale votes party line on just about everything.
What does that mean? What does he vote for that we might find reprehensible?
Removing school lunches for students. He doesn't believe that kids should have free school lunch.
Wow.
There was $2 million that was a part of the $650 or so million that the Republican Appropriations Committee clawed back that was already approved.
Yeah.
$2 million was supposed to go to the Rochester Community House.
Really? Maybe they didn't need the $2 million. I'm sure they'd all be glad to hear they didn't get it.
Well, when they were called by their county commissioner, who said, "Hey, have you heard?" and they had not, he got to be the one to break the news to them. And they had contracts signed, they have construction work, like they have a whole plan to use this money that was ripped away.
By Rep. Tisdale's vote and voting with the rest of them that said,
and
you don't need that money.
Right, and I saw him go before the Rochester City Council, and they said, "Hey, that money, is it gone?" He said, "Well, I put in for an appropriation for $3.7 million because inflation, and we're going to make sure we get that money." And so they're probably going to give him that appropriation so he can use that this cycle. Mark Tisdale shows up in election years. He'll disappear for a year, and then when it's time for him to start running again, he will show up, and then he'll start to show up to Rochester City Council meetings, but he didn't give an answer. They said, "Are we going to get that money? Is it approved?" And he dances around it because the answer is no. And it's a 2027 appropriation, so it's not going to come in 2026 anyway. So he votes against
the interest of his constituency.
And even if he didn't make the vote because he wasn't on that appropriations committee, he supports our Speaker of the Michigan State House, Matt Hall, and he's an ideologue, and everything he does, he doesn't care. He just believes what he does, and that's how he's going to go.
Matt Hall is like the worst elements in the Trump administration. I don't think the average person understands how dangerous and how harmful Matt Hall has been to Michigan,
Yes.
and he aligns with him.
Exclusively, yes.
That's pretty sick. Well, how are you going to beat this guy?
We're going to raise a lot of money, which sucks. That's the plan. And we're going to knock.
Well,
we're gonna-
raising a lot of money doesn't suck. Having to do it sucks.
Yes. Trying to do it and needing to do it sucks.
Yeah.
We shouldn't have to spend the amount of money we do to win these seats, or try anyway. But state house races are won by knocking on doors. That's how I almost won my primary in 2024. And that's
Where you came in late in the race then,
yeah, I
and
got
lost
in,
by how many votes when you came in late?
just under 500.
And
I
you
think.
were in for
3 or
less than
4
half the time that the other guy was in.
Yes, he had been in the race for about 17 months. Pretty much when the race was lost in 2022, he was around after the Dems lost the 55th race. And so he had been around, and then he had been in the race for 17, 18 months. I got in really in March or April of 2024 for the August primary. And we had little to no money. It was me, my wife, my cousin, we went and knocked on doors, and I got 47.5% of the vote. And I shouldn't have done as well as I did. But if you just go talk to people, we did 5 mailers. If you just go talk to them, people are astounded that there's a politician on their doorstep that will talk to them for half an hour. I will talk to somebody as long as they want to talk. I don't care. When their Republican husband comes home and, oh, who are you talking to? I'll talk to that guy. I don't care. I'm not hey, vote for me. Here's my lit. I'm gone, because that gets you nowhere.
The Republican husband probably is saying more, who's that good-looking guy you're talking to on our doorstep?
Well, thank you.
All right, so listen, a major highlight on your website is strengthening Michigan schools. So how would you go about doing that, and what does it take, to make Michigan public education system better, because we're near the bottom right now?
We need to get hooked on phonics again. I remember that because I know you do. Not everybody does. But in the state of Michigan, I think we have, out of the 800 or so school districts, we have 750 or more different curriculums. Every district gets to purchase and find their own curriculum, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. In the city of Detroit, the school system is different than St. John, Michigan, right? Those kids, there's different circumstances. But when you have that much variation, and you are, and it's not standardized, we need to move to a system where we're doing the same thing across the state. And we need to look at other states like Mississippi, like Tennessee, who are now in the top 10, who were not historically.
No.
And we need to figure out what they are doing. And what they've done is they've switched back to some tried and true methods, like using phonics to teach reading. And that's how they've improved their reading scores. I think we need to separate the K-12 budget from the higher ed budget, because it's currently all in the same pool. And so higher ed always feels like K-12 is pulling money away, and K-12 always feels like higher ed is pulling the money away. And so those, in a lot of other states, are 2 separate pools so that they can be managed, because running Oakland University is very different than running Rochester Community Schools for various reasons. Yes, they're both educational, but they have different needs and requirements and funding from the state. And then I think we need to make sure that we're making teaching a profession that people want to go into and stay in, by keeping their kids safe in school, by paying teachers enough, by giving them the resources. My sister's a teacher in Bloomfield, and she buys classroom supplies. And Bloomfield is an incredible school district, as we know.
Yeah.
But she still spends her money to buy school supplies.
That doesn't make any sense. I know. I can't understand that.
And who wants to go into that profession to make $30,000 a year to then still have to buy markers for the kids in your class? The people that do it are passionate and they want to do it, but you can't buy a house if you are not a dual income family. It's not possible. And so we have to make teaching a career that people want to go into by making sure that they're compensated properly, to make sure that they're safe in their workplace. And those are the basics that we can do to try and bring our education system back to where it used to be and where it should be.
Safety is important, but the pay is, because spending $50,000 or more on a college education to become a teacher and then making sub-minimum wage.
Yeah.
No one's stupid enough to do that unless their heart is so full and their bank account looks better than mine.
And And I'll say real quick, so my wife just graduated from medical school last week, and she has not medical school debt because I transferred her my GI Bill, which I was able to do. So her medical school was free, which is great. But she has undergrad loans from Oakland University.
Yeah.
I'm currently getting my master's in public administration because I'm a psycho, and apparently you should run for office and try and get a master's at the same time. But I have $70-some thousand in debt myself. So we're fortunate not to have that medical school debt, but I have debt. My wife has debt. Like everyone my age has debt, and it's because she wants to become a physician, and she has done that. And I am very passionate about public policy and learning more, and it shouldn't be that way.
I agree. All right. What would you do about this? Trump and his administration are creating havoc all over in Michigan. Tariffs, ICE, perceived and possible and probable election interference coming up. What can you do to stand up to Trump when you get elected?
Do everything that we can at the state level to build in those guardrails that we thought existed and hoped existed with state legislation to make it so that federal agents cannot observe polling stations in the state of Michigan, right? We can pass legislation.
Is that done from Lansing or is it done city by city?
This will have to be done in Lansing.
Okay.
I had a chance to talk to Congressman Jason Crow. He came out for a town hall in a Republican congressional district that they wouldn't show up in. And people said, "Hey, what are you doing?" And he said, "As soon as we get power back, this is the set of guardrails that we are going to pass in legislation that we have to prevent Donald Trump from continuing to wage tariff wars that he's not legally allowed to do until it gets challenged, and then he just does it again the next day in an executive order." That isn't a thing managed at the state level, but election interference, election concerns. We have early voting, 9 days of early voting here in Michigan. A lot of other states don't. That scares them. They don't like that. They don't want people who are working 2 jobs to be able to come vote because it's not going to be for them. We are going to have to take a really hard look at what we believe our democracy is and make legislation that circles around it to make sure that it's protected against people like Matt Hall and people like Donald Trump.
So we talked about a lot of things, the cost of living, the state of our education system, the tariffs, ICE, election interference. Are there any other issues you think Michiganders are facing that you're going to be, taking the gauntlet up for?
Labor support is something that is very, very important to me. So I grew up with a single mom who worked for United Airlines for 25 plus years as a customer service rep, but was in a union. And so when you're a kid, you don't know you're poor, right? You eat mac and cheese or you eat hot dogs every other night, right? You don't know. You're like, this is great. But we didn't have a lot growing up, and you realize that as you get older. And I don't believe I'd be sitting in this chair had she not had the resources to make sure that I had health care from the union that they bargained for, to make sure that she had a job that could make enough of a wage to support me and my sister. My sister's an MEA teacher. My grandmother was an MEA teacher and representative for her school in East Point for 30 years. My dad, before he passed, was IATSE, the International Association of Theatrical Stage Employees. I come from a very strong union background, and unions, I don't think it's a coincidence that union membership has dropped aggressively, and billionaires and CEOs' raises have gone up exponentially.
Truth.
And so supporting labor and supporting unions is something that is a very strong project. And I joked with one of the unions in 2024. I did my interview and I said, even if you don't endorse me, it doesn't change my values. It doesn't change my support for you. And they ended up endorsing my opponent. And one of my people on my team said, you don't tell them that. You can't say that. And I said, well, it's true. I don't care. I'm not going to vote against this union or these unions just because they didn't endorse me. Was I sad? Yeah. Did I think I should get it? Yeah. But I don't care. I'm a regular person, and I think we need more people who are not petty, narcissistic sociopaths in politics.
I agree wholeheartedly. How did your experience in the service prepare you to serve in government in Lansing?
Well, my joke is when people say, you're running for office, you have to be crazy. And I say, running for office isn't the craziest thing I've ever done. And it's my knee slapper joke. And people say, isn't it stressful? And then I often say, it's either, being a bomb tech, is it stressful? And I say, well, it's either my problem or immediately it's not. It's no longer my problem. My wife hates that joke, but I think it's funny. I think working with people on deployments, working with people of various ethnic backgrounds, various religious backgrounds, various upbringings, all in the exact same space with the same mission and the same drive. I think that has pushed me and prepared me for this type of work and will give me the ability to work with people in Lansing, like I said earlier, across the aisle, and make sure that we are putting Michigan first no matter what. That's what we have to do. That's it. We all, in theory, care about Michigan. But as a conservative person that thinks that we should be fiscally responsible and thinks that we should be, actually helping people with their issues, and that we should have a government that works, that's not privately subsidized or private sector, taking apart the Michigan state government and giving it to private companies for profit. I think keeping it all together and doing what we can, the military has helped me see those different paths and how things work and how the privatized industry works and make it all work together in a way that we can push Michigan forward.
And I would say fiscal responsibility is not conservative, it's common sense.
Yes.
If Michigan politics were a soap opera and had a main villain character, who would it be?
Matt Hall.
Okay, good. I'm glad you named one. Everybody sits there is like, I hate to say, I'm not going to. Yeah, I agree. Matt Hall would be the Susan Lucci of our soap opera.
And I've never met Matt Hall. And that doesn't mean that Matt Hall is a bad dad or a bad husband, right? I don't know him. I don't know that those things are true. And so when I say Matt Hall is the villain, it is because I think that as a kid who had a reduced school lunch, that we should make sure that kids can eat at lunch. And he disagrees with that. I think that we need to make sure that we have clean water. There was a water main break in Rochester and in Lake Orion and in Auburn Hills, and they're on a boil advisory, and they're about out of water. And so I don't think Matt Hall's going to show up to try and work with the Great Lakes Water Authority to make sure that people are getting the relief, right? That's not going to happen. And so we have some really fundamental disagreements. Not that he's a bad person that I'm aware of. We just disagree on how the government can actually help people.
I think you might be a bad person, but that's just me. All right, let's close this out. From your opinion, what's the best part and what's the worst part of running for office?
The best part is getting to talk to people, going to people's doors, hearing their issues, understanding. I talked to a constituent who explained to me their students or their child's path through special education. And I was diagnosed with dyslexia when I was in elementary school, and so I was on a IEP, an individualized education plan, for a while until I outgrew it and was at a level that was okay. I had a great experience. My school district gave me the resources I needed. I didn't have any issues, and so that was my frame of thought. I said, oh, it works for people in the state of Michigan. I was rudely awoken to the fact that is not the case for every student. And so getting a chance to talk to people and understanding what their issues are, why and how it's affecting them is great. One of the terrible things running for office is that no matter what you do, this video will get cut. The Republicans will cut part of this video. Everything you say, you have to worry about because they're going to cut it and paste it together. You're always... we posted I got a Moms Demand Action gun sense candidate. And in my post, I said, I own firearms. I'm a reserve sheriff's deputy. I'm a responsible gun owner, Gifford's gun owner, right? And people just started commenting, you're a disgrace, you're a terrible. And so I just turned the comments off because people are so aggressive, and that is not even how my district is. The people of Rochester and Rochester Hills, their lives are, by and large, it's a nice place, right? Their lives are okay. They don't want to watch or see dirty, terrible politics, but it's the world that we live in. And so I very rarely go on my social media other than when we do posts. But it's terrible. Everyone's always trying to come after you. and I think I'm a good person, and I think I've spent my entire life in service to help and do good, and for people to just try and tear me down fucking sucks.
I agree. And I want to say, Alex Hawkins, I thank you for your service, and I'm sure all the people listening do as well. And I wish you best of luck in your race, House District 55, unopposed in the primary. Go get them.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.